Now, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, well, listen. As you already know, and you are about to see more than ever in a rap game filled with snakes and losers, there are so many people on all corners of the genre rooting against Kendrick and things like this happening. I gotta tell you, be sure to leave a like and subscribe because honestly guys, I am at a point where from how much hip-hop media is downplaying Kendrick Lamar's accomplishments, not just on the Drake side of things, but from a whole perspective of it, I'm pretty annoyed. But what this got me to thinking about, and what we are going to be talking about today, is how when it comes to people hating Kendrick Lamar and actively rooting against him while you have your people like Drake, academics, and all of these other losers whose disdain for the guy is not that surprising because, well, he actively stands in the way of everything they have built empires of lies and chaos from. There is another side of hip-hop that also hates Kendrick. And to be honest, when you really understand why and see what they have been actively doing to try and take down the one lyrical rapper, and an era of guys who can't even make a complete sentence at the top of rap to just ruin him, you will realize that just like Kendrick Lamar has been talking, telling, and warning us about, the rap game is filled with some serious weirdos and snakes, and there are some genuine problems. So listen, before we get into looking at the rappers who throughout this entire era and Kendrick Lamar's whole career, really, well, aside from Drake, have been the biggest haters of him and have tried to turn the inner circles of rap and hip-hop and the gatekeepers of the whole thing against him with some real Hall of Fame hating. Make sure to leave those likes because once again, as there is seemingly an effort coming from the Cupcake Drake side and from these other corners of hip-hop now to take down Kendrick, we just got to expose all of this. And so now with these two rappers who I am singling out today, there's a lot of history, not just with a tumultuous past with Kendrick Lamar going into whatever differences they have had, but really in the lineage and vacuum of hip-hop as a whole, and after an era of lyrical and conscious superstars in the likes of the Nazis and Tupac of the world. Well, going back to the 2000s, before Kendrick was ever a thing, who would be the next guy to stand as the face of rap and be a superstar, who was just as flashy as the other top guys on the charts, but was not talking about the typical commercial things. It was talking about a much realer and powerful set of topics. And within the lineage of rap, before Kendrick got to filling this void and taking it over in a way that no rapper has ever been able to take things to, there were two guys who once it felt like they were destined to have the spot that he has had now for over a decade at this point, and who were seen as not just the next superstar and face of conscious hip-hop, but really these guys were seen to many people as the next greatest rapper of all time. And I am serious about that. And who I am talking about? Well, if you have not figured it out, are no other rappers than Lupe, Fiasco, and Electronica. And now with these two MCs, unlike Drake, who we can call out for being a loser Karen, who has sold out hip-hop's core values and wants Kendrick to fail so that he can make more 2C slides and the genre gets less teebs overall. With the beef and tension between Jay and Lupe against Kendrick Lamar, the issue is much more nuanced and complicated even when it comes to the talent level of these other two MCs. Well, listen. If you have heard songs like Mural from Lupe or Exhibit C from Electronica, you know these are not Drake-level rappers. And just like so many other people thought before Kendrick Lamar came along. Well, to some level, and you could even still see this with the stuff they still drop, many people at a point thought that they could have been the next goats of the rap game as a whole. And so now listen, since Lupe and Kendrick's beef is more known because Lupe seems to come out and try to up Drake and tear down Kendrick's pen whenever he can despite swearing that he is not a hater, we're going to start this video off by looking at Kendrick and Electronica's beef, which for those who don't know, Kendrick Lamar has dissed Electronica by name on a song that while it never officially released was the original version of his track Element. And listen, here's what Kendrick said after Jay kept dissing him over and over again in all sorts of ways, which read, Electronica threw silences on my Grammy night. Another prophet hoping that God will give him life. And with these lines, Jay's career, his disdain for Kendrick Lamar, and just the general perception of what his legacy will be really have never been more perfectly described. And at that especially from the guy who he almost wishes, or at the very least is jealous of to some degree, because really when we break it down for Electronica and the legacy he is leaving in rap, he is a fallen prophet that no matter what he has done in his time in rap, he will always be viewed as a watif, and somebody who has always lived in the shadow of the massive expectations that they set up for themselves when they came out in the rap game, and I do recommend engaging with Electronica's music if you haven't, because in a rap game that we have seen today, where there is a lot of mid. I mean, listen, while the guy is a hater and nobody is on Kendrick's level from the beats to the skits to Jay's rapping, while his music is abstract, and as Joe Budden said recently when reacting to his new projects, despite being a great technical MC, it's hard to get behind the stuff he is actually saying with the messaging in his music. I still think as a student of the game and a fan of hip-hop, you should understand what the mold for somebody who everybody thought the GOAT was going to be was. And, maybe even listening to his music, you can clearly see why he never actually became the thing that people thought he was going to be. And so, with that said, and what really got me thinking about Jay and Kendrick's beef is that when you listen to any of the new projects that Jay dropped, especially, which all came out within the last week, which are called Mars, the inhabited planet at the rate of my dreams, and Leaflets. I mean, with all these records, while they're not perfect, and there are some weird choices that will have you have your head scratching across the board, you can at least see an echo of the potential and ceiling that was once had with his career. And really, when it does come to Kendrick Lamar for his beef with Kendrick and the disdain that he has always held, if we want to look at why such a talented MC really does despise King Kendrick, all we have to do is not just look at how Jay and his career has remained a what-if while Kendrick became the literal face of lyrical rap, but really ever since Kendrick started to become the walking legend that we have seen him turn into, he has just managed to outclass him and show that he is the best MC in every way possible. As if we go back to the moment where Kendrick Lamar changed the rap game forever and created one of the biggest domino effects we would ever see in the history of the genre in Big C's Control. One of the most underrated and unrecognized parts about that song and the legacy and impact of that track really is well aside from how Kendrick Lamar did everything there. Well, he didn't just call out the rappers that he did wash Big Sean on his own song and create arguably the greatest rap moment of the 2010s decade. And honestly, you could argue of all time. But he also made a moment so genre-stopping and important that people forgot, and forget to pay attention to this day to the verse that followed right after on that track in Jay Electronica's very own. And from Kendrick watching him on that day to just seeing the way their dynamic evolved, and Jay Electronica became a Hall of Fame hater as Kendrick Lamar became a further and further first ballot rap Hall of Famer. Really everything built from Control on. And we really did see the peak of this when Jay Electronica dropped his diss track, which was aimed at both 50 Cent and Kendrick Lamar, The Curse of Mayweather. And he said this about Kendrick, which was very telling. And it said he got 11 Grammy nominations. Y'all not equal. Man, F these people. My grandmother at 82 scrubbing floors and still running around begging for awards. And really with this moment in their beef, you see everything you need to know about Jay. Because when he actually did drop his 2020 album, A Written Testimony, and got nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys, you didn't hesitate to submit the album and embrace being at the awards. And really, there's nothing else to say because when you see somebody diss Kendrick for having Grammy nominations, yet you ran to the Grammys to get validation, you see the hypocrisy and hatred that he so clearly had for Kendrick, which again, it wasn't about the things that he was actually saying, but it all just does come down to the fact that Kendrick is a better MC who has not just been able to outshine him in head-to-head tracks and steal his moments, but beyond just that, when it came to every other thing measurable, and especially the fame and success that Kendrick has gotten while staying and true to himself, someone like Jay has just never been able to really take this in and internalize it. And what the worst part about this beef is that honestly, despite whatever talent Jay has had and the music he has made, which there are a lot of gems in his catalog, which his new song Letter to Mars showed that off to me, especially within his new 3 drops, which I do recommend if you want to listen to his music and just see what he has to offer now, especially check that song out. Well, ultimately he still decides to just be such a cornball that when it comes to this standoff with the two sides of hip-hop and the Kendrick side, which is really the hip-hop purists, and the Drake side, which are the vultures, Jay has taken Drake's side time and time again, and has upped him up whenever he can, which when you realize what he stands for and the type of MC he is, I mean, you can see that when it comes to supporting whatever the literal Karen of rap is doing, the only pure purpose of this is to spite Kendrick for the same reason he tried to flipped this diss back on him in 2016. But now listen, before we go any further into this, let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself wondering whether a message or somebody trying to reach you is real or a scam? For me, I have kept having this problem recently, where, as I am waiting for a very important call, I just keep getting bothered by unknown numbers, and as this kept happening, I realized that my number was out there so easily. And if you have ever had this problem and wanted to take action, today's sponsor, Aura, is here to help you. Aura is a service that protects your identity, data, and sensitive information. And by using their data broker opt-out feature, I have not been getting annoyed with scam calls and text messages. Because with this feature, Aura will help remove your personal information from data brokers and people search sites that can sell your info to identity thieves, scammers, and more. And now making Aura even more helpful for me. From their personal VPNs, which protects my connection and blocks scamming and phishing sites, to their password manager, which stores all of my passwords conveniently and securely. Aura helps me stay organized and secure online. And all your data is safeguarded using the same security standards as banks. And plus, Aura will never sell your data to third parties. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers. And if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/fantastic hip hop to try 2 weeks for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. And so, thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. And now, with that said, when you see the way that Jay has just stood against Kendrick to stand against him over the jealousy of never getting what he has and never putting in the work, when you realize that he dropped the most music he ever has in his entire career over the last 10 days. And this is a wild stat. He dropped more new songs in this span than in the last 18 years. There is just so much jealousy from this guy for Kendrick, and it's so clear. But now, aside from Jay Electronica, the other rapper who has been a Hall of Fame hater to Kendrick really for about as much time as Jay, but their beef has been a little different, is none other than Lupe Fiasco. And let's just make something clear. First of all, I made a video about Kendrick and Lupe a long time ago, and Lupe did kind of call me out for it. And I just want to say I don't want any smoke. But before we get into the tension even more with Jay, Farrup is a genius as an artist, and he is one of the greatest rappers of all time, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise because when you hear his first 2 albums and a project like Tetsuo, and youth, there are few people who have done better when it comes to this rap thing than Lupe. But within that few people, and again Lupe, I don't want any problems. Kendrick is clearly above and beyond one of them. And for whatever reason this is, and why this beef is so sad, is because not just would these artists work great together, and probably could achieve a lot more if they stood together, and thought about how to connect some of their ideas, because when it comes to concept albums, I don't know if there are any 2 rappers who do them better than Kendrick and Lupe. But on that very point, Lupe just can't accept that. And not just has Lupe hated on Kendrick and said that he is a better lyricist than him, but even more than Jay Electronica, Lupe has done a real disappointing thing to me and taken Drake's side in the beef, and with their diss tracks over Kendrick Lamar's. And again, when you see where the 2 stand and you see the skill which Lupe so clearly has, which does make it obvious that deep down inside when he listens and interacts with both Kendrick and Drake's music, he knows how to judge things that he is hearing. I mean, again, when the guy made the Cool, and then you see that he is hyping up Family Matters over the Kendrick diss tracks. We know you're only hating for the sole purpose of being a hater and being jealous of Kendrick Lamar and what he's been able to do and achieve as the conscious lyrical rapper who has never once given up his style, integrity, or just his vision at all. And yet again, he's been able to achieve greatness, pull crowds like this and play at the Super Bowl, and pretty much do any other thing that not just a real rap star could ever do, but a real musical superstar on all levels possible. And again, to just expand on this point, the sad thing for Lupe Fiasco really is that really well with whatever he holds against for Kendrick Lamar, this is why Game is failing to recognize Game. And while Lupe has a much worse story in the industry, as labels pretty much did ruin his prime and hold him back from taking a massive leap from classic album number 2 to album number 3, which ended up being a huge flop, but all because of label issues and not anything really to do with Lupe. Still, even with that, to resent somebody for just having a better chance in the industry and getting to a spot, that really does mean a lot as he is representing the very things that you did to an extent. And yet at the same time, while that position and even the value of it is under question, you're trying to support the other guy in Drake, who is ruining things. That's just not how you should move if you put the rap game first over your own ego or disdain for another MC. And with Lupe and Jay Electronica's issues with Kendrick both point of what I am trying to say, and while I am sure there is a lot more rappers like them who are just yet to reveal themselves or are too insignificant to talk about, is that in this rap game that has reached the point it did and where it's falling apart in a lot of ways. Well, it's because not just are the Drakes and academics of the world running a literal and total clown show that is devaluing and making people get into hip-hop, yet not actually understand what hip-hop is, and just create the weird era we saw for the last decade or so. But while on the other side of things, from these elite corners of rappers who maybe had ceilings that they never reached, they also hate on Kendrick Lamar and actively root for his downfall, all the way to the point that they would rather cheer for a literal Megaran who has filed a suit over rap lyrics than a storyteller who has done the thing that 52 years of talent has built up to represent something that no other medium or expression is genuinely like at the highest level. And I mean, listen, Kendrick is well aware of this, and he has been telling us a lot about how these rappers don't like him. And I think with the moment we are in right now, that has never been more obvious. But as this is the reality we are in, and things are not going to change, we just all have to support Kendrick Lamar because beyond whatever else, with so many people rooting against him for the reasons they are, it has never been more important to just back up the guy who is doing the most for the thing we all love. And with this, when you see so many people turning on the king of a craft because they are jealous of him, and they are actively rooting for the villain just because they don't like the guy who's in the lead, this is some sad and pathetic stuff. And really what I have to commend Kendrick Lamar for is how he did respond to the pressure he has been getting from Drake and a lot of other losers in the rap game, and how he's seemingly going to continue for the rest of the year, which, well, we just saw more than ever at his most recent show. And if you want to see how Kendrick just gave one of the best responses we could have ever seen, and how Kendrick is seemingly only winning more even with all the backlash he is getting, well, just check out the suggested video.
Heat.